You see a window and you look through, but you can't get in the window and you wonder, where's the door to this thing? And so as an outsider, you're banja, and you definitely feel it. When we were learning Turkish, my wife and I, we were aware of a lot of mistakes that you can make. One story we heard was somebody who was learning Turkish and they got on Dolmuş and they wanted to get off and they said in a loud voice, "İnek var." And of course everybody looked out the window to see a cow in the middle of Istanbul, but they meant "İnek var," but they didn't quite get it right. And my wife and I used a Turkish textbook called Adım Adım Türkçe, step-by-step Turkish. But the problem was we don't have an I without a dot in American English, so when my wife was explaining to people that she was writing Turkish Adam Adam, we got quite some eyebrows raised because she was too well. But that's not quite as bad as a friend of ours who made a mistake. She went into a bakery and mixing up the word for bread and the other word for man, she asked for a fresh, hot air cake instead of an ekmek. But I'll tell you one that I made in just a minute, so I've made my goof-ups too. At some point, I was asked to teach in Turkish at the second university, and it was a pretty overwhelming challenge. And I thought I was going to have all my notes translated and have it all polished and in great Turkish. But I got there on the first day of class, and of course, we had these plans that never materialized. So I'm looking at English notes, and I'm thinking, I got to say this in Turkish. This is going to be really good. So I just said a quick prayer, "Help me, Lord," and I started talking. And it wasn't too bad, but after a while people started raising their hands. "Sir, is this what you're trying to say? I think it'd be better if you said it this way. We'd understand it if you would." And so I learned Turkish for my students while they were trying to learn some computer engineering from me. I really appreciate your kindness to help me out. Keeping up foreigners' morale or their sort of self-esteem is challenging. You have to say a lot of nice things to them. Everybody knows that as soon as you learn merhaba, people say, "Oh, your Turkish is awesome, you're so great." and then after you've been here, a few weeks, and you can say, "Nasılsınız," and then adım will, a few things like that. People are praising your Turkish like it's wonderful. 6 months into it, they're saying, "You speak so great for a foreigner." Year or two, your Turkish is pretty good. 5 years, they say, "How long have you been here?" And you tell them, and they go, "That's all right." Now I'm ashamed to tell people how long I've been here, because if I do, they say, "Your Turkish is awful. All this time, and that's all you can do." So you got to be careful. There's a standard that you sort of overmade in the beginning, and then later you fall far short. But I had a boss that made this job. Black Sea Coast, I taught at Black Sea Technical University, and this guy was a master of psychology. Turkish was so good. And of course, this is the place where the students said, "Sir, are you trying to say this?" And so at one point, he said, "Will, where did you learn your Turkish?" And I said, "Well, in Istanbul. That's where we first met." He said, "Oh, Istanbul Turkish." And he said, "Where'd you learn it from?" I said, "Well, I went to Tomer." He said, "Oh, a branch of Ankara University's language and literature faculty." He said, "Who were your teachers?" I said, "Well, as far as I know, they were new university grads." "Oh, university grads, teachers. Where did they get their training from?" "They were just out of Istanbul University." "Ooh, Istanbul University. Which faculty did they graduate from?" I knew there was something that this was going to end up with. I just didn't know where it was going. I said, "Well, as far as I know, they were recent grads of the language and literature faculties." "Man, no wonder your Turkish is so good. You learned it in Istanbul from Istanbul University language and literature faculty grads. But look at us, Zavala and Cardinals, and we learned it from our Black Sea mothers. No wonder we can't talk." In the Black Sea they have all these, Tanel jokes, and they love to tell jokes on themselves, but this was the one that I'll never forget. He's telling me my Turkish is great, apologizing for their Black Sea accent. Anyway, there's not just language things, there's also cultural things, and now I'm going to tell you a couple of my big boo-boos. Our first class in Istanbul, we had really lovely relationships with a conservative landlady and her family. And this lady was quite conservative. She wore gloves all the time. And I never got the chance to shake her hand and forget, getting close. And she didn't want to carry on more than about a 20-second conversation, but she was a very nice lady, and we got along really well, and we liked the house very much. After a year, it was time to go home to the United States on a summer holiday, and our flight was really early. I think we had to leave at 5 in the morning or something. So we got up, and sure enough, she and her family are up too. Her daughter's up there on the balcony, and everybody's waving goodbye. We miss you. Please come back. Don't stay in the U.S. All this, lovely stuff to, make us feel very emotional. And then it came time to say goodbye to her and her family, and my wife had shook her hand and gave her a kiss, and then it came my turn, and she stuck out her hand. She had offered her hand to me. And this meant it was 5 in the morning, right? And I'm only a budget. So guess what I do? I grab her hand and give her a pull to get in closer. And she went, and turned beet red, I turned red, and her daughter was laughing so hard I thought she was going to fall off the balcony. She just thought it was the wildest thing. Anyway, hooray, Harlem forgave us. We got along fine well after that, but that was a never to be forgotten event. Almost got kissed by a skinny American guy. All right, but this one also is pretty bad. Before I came here, I read in some of these guidebooks about the Turks having been from Central Asia, having had a very nomadic culture. In fact, there was even a strong horse aspect of the culture. And you can see some of these games they play with on horseback, wild and crazy and pretty violent. And I read that fermented mare's milk was part of the diet of that nomadic culture. So it stuck in mind, but I hadn't seen any in Istanbul, but nobody had ever offered any. And it got to be summer, and some of these street sellers, and you hear this guys going down the streets at dusk. I couldn't quite understand it, so we were listening a little closer. And it seemed like it was coming out, Boza, Boza. And I was curious, but I just didn't know if I wanted to risk it. So anyway, but a few days later, I was in a pastane, and in this family shop, and I went to the right away. So I asked her, mare's milk. And the whole place is like, what? So bad. What an idiot. But I put myself in that one. So anyway, now let's get to some university stories. I'd like to tell you a few of my favorites. When I first started teaching, I realized I had some teaching experience because it was in an American context. And you understand language is different, and you understand culture is different, but think about it. There's a thing called education culture. And so I was teaching my students, but it's just sort of going okay. We had the first midterm, results were disastrous. And I wasn't sure what was wrong. I thought I was doing my best, and they looked like they were trying, but it didn't go well. And then I noticed outside my office there's a kind of a crowd of them, and they pushed one kid forward, kind of a spokesman. He comes in, he says, sir, some of my friends and me have been talking, and I don't think it's going through this. I said, no, I think it's going through pretty either. He said, what do you think is some of the issues? I'm not really sure, I'm new here. What do you guys think? He said, well, among us, we've been talking, and we think that basically it comes down to this. Either 40 Turkish students are going to have to become a whole lot more American in their learning style, or one American teacher is going to have to become a lot more Turkish in his teaching style. That's kind of how they put it. It was very kind, but, that don't be true. I got the idea. They were making it very clear that I needed to come over to learn a lot more. And I have tried to. I'm not all the way there yet. Thing about language, thing about culture is kind of like a mountain with never ends. You just go climb a bit, we get to a flat spot, and so there's more. Climb some more. So I'm still climbing up after 28 years. That same group of students had what I call a set of back row boys. If any of you are teachers, you know what the back row boys are. They're always the ones that sit in the furthest place away, and they're talking and goofing and writing and, texting their girlfriends and anything but listen to the lesson. And so the back row boys are kind of hard to win into the topic and win, but you got to deal with them because they'll always be there. And this one particular group of back row boys kind of caught my heart. They were particularly lively and had a funny streak. So I decided to play a joke on them and the whole class. And on April 1st, I scheduled a midterm exam. And it was a hard one. In fact, I've never made an exam up so hard in my life. I didn't even know the answer to all the questions on the exam. I just had really, really hard things and passed it out. The students were like, oh, they were dying. Oh my God, there's no chance. Get a zero. I'm going to get a negative number. It was that. And then after about 10 minutes, I said, okay, stop. It's just an April Fool's joke. And they were like, sir! I got a lot of reactions, so we just collected those back, and that was that. And we didn't have an exam that night, and everybody was happy to leave after that, but I really scared them. So comes final exam time, end of that semester, and they're coming in and handing out the papers, and the back row boys gave me one. They said, sir, last night about 4 in the morning, got a little crazy, because we were wont to do, pulling all-nighter studying for your final exam. We wrote one for you. So here's our exam. They're giving me an exam. I've never had this happen before. I thought the teachers were the ones giving out the exam. So anyway, everybody sits down and the regular exam starts, and I'm looking at this thing that they gave me. 4, 5, 6 pages of interesting and very funny questions. Those guys should join this Mise avec Culture, I'll tell you. It was really hilarious. I can't remember them all. It's been a long time, but the one that I won't forget was we had been studying digital electronics, and transistors and transistor circuits were a very important part of the course. That was kind of the hard part too, I would say. And that was the year that John Bourdain passed away. I don't know if any of you know, but 3 guys, Schottky, Britannia, Bourdain, invented the transistor at Bell Labs in the late 40s, and they got the Nobel Prize for it. So this guy is a Nobel Prize winner, and he died. And the Turkish newspaper carried the little headline, John Bourdain, father of the transistor, passes away. And the guys had clipped the newspaper article out, pasted it on one of their exam question pages, and started the question, and then canceled it out and said, hooray! No more need to study transistors, because the father has died, by the way, so we're free from that. Of course, as I was reading that question, I was breaking up. And the students that are taking the exam seriously, and the back row boys, they're like, what? You make sense? They're so happy to entertain me on the final exam. And a lot of crazy things do happen at 4 in the morning. If you've ever been up working, you know that you get a little punchy. So I certainly understood that one. Well, one of those back row boys went on to become the CEO of an international computer company, the Turkish CEO. And so I'm here to look anything for some confidence. For you all. I certainly enjoyed the last 20 years of being in Turkey at Freedom University. It was a beautiful college. People who say I've never been that Boston all my life. I've really enjoyed all my department here, including the current one, very much. But most of all, I enjoyed the students. They, as any of us that are teaching on, they keep you young, they keep you happy, they're your pride and joy, and you smile and laugh a lot because of the students. So it's been a real privilege to be a for these years in Turkey, and I wouldn't do it over again. I mean,